Okay. This is a regular meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission. Today is Thursday, April 18, 2019. The current secretary, please take roll.
Commissioner Sierra.
Here.
Commissioner Oliva.
Here.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Cha. For the record, Commissioner Cha is not present at the meeting. Commissioner Oliver.
Present.
Thank you.
Seeing a quorum, this meeting is officially called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. To members of the public regarding public comments. If a member of the public is interested in speaking on an agenda item, please complete a comment card with the agenda item number and submit to the recording secretary. Your name will be called when the item is up for discussion. If a member of the public is interested in making a general comment or question, please complete a comment card and submit to the recording secretary. At this time, for the Commission to consider matters under consent calendar, items include 1 and 2. Do any of the members have any corrections to the minutes, items they wish to pull for separate discussion or abstain on? Do I have a motion to consider items 1 and 2?
I motion. Yes,
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The matter approved by 4 votes or unanimous consent. We have one work study session. Please note that there will be no motion or action taken on these items. The item is presentation by Arts OC regarding the 2019 Otis report on the creative economy published by the Otis College of Art and Design.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Rick Stein. I'm the President and CEO of Arts Orange County. And my presentation includes the Otis report as well as some other things. So let me provide you with a little bit of background on me, on Arts Orange County, and some of the data that I'm going to present tonight. So I came to Orange County in 1987. I was hired to run the Grove Shakespeare Festival in Garden Grove, where I was for 3 years. I then was on a committee to help found Arts Orange County back in 1988 because the predecessor Arts Council for the county had dissolved. And it took a few years to get it off the ground, and a new executive director was hired, Bonnie Hall, who led the organization for 14 years. Subsequently to Garden Grove, I ran the Laguna Playhouse for 17 and a half years as its executive director. And then when Bonnie retired from Arts Orange County and they were concerned about the leadership transition, they invited me to take over the role. And now I've been here almost 11 years. And I'm very, very passionate about the work of an arts council. My very first job out of graduate school was running a county-wide arts council in a rural upstate New York county called Oswego County, New York. And while my career was primarily in the theater as a producer and director, I've always been attentive to the holistic view of the arts ecology of the communities that I've lived in and worked in, and have devoted considerable attention personally and professionally to it, and now have the opportunity to be leading such efforts here in Orange County. I also have a bit of a history with the city of Santa Ana. So early on, when there was a community-wide effort and interest in developing the Arts Commission, which had not existed, we were among those who came and spoke before council and advocated for that move. Around that same time, also, we had completed a public art project that we managed for the OC Fair and Events Center, and Gerardo Mouet, who was on the fair board, as well as the library director here in Santa Ana, came rushing out at the end of their board meeting to say, "I didn't know you did that. We have a public art project that we need some management for here in Santa Ana." So we managed the Japanese American agricultural worker memorial sculpture project at the end of the bike trail on Flower Street, where it meets Sunflower Avenue. And we managed the process of submissions and a judging panel to select it. We didn't select it, we simply facilitated the whole process. And then we're there for the dedication. So we were very proud to have worked with the city of Santa Ana in that regard as well. Which, no good deed goes unpunished, as they say. And so I was then asked to serve on the steering committee for the Santa Ana Master Arts and Culture Plan. So, and I had been engaged in some cultural planning before. The county had done, in 2005, a cultural indicators report assessing the state of the arts throughout Orange County, and that was immediately prior to my arrival. And I was involved in writing a portion of the City of Laguna Beach Master Arts and Culture Plan, the first one they did in the 90s. Since then, we have prepared additional plans. We've just now completed the one for the City of Costa Mesa. It was approved by their arts committee, and will go to council probably in June or July. We've done one for the City of Newport Beach, the City of Mission Viejo, and for the City of Irvine. So cultural planning is an important and valuable tool to arts-concerned citizens who wish to see the arts ecology advanced. And so that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about, but I just want to give you a brief overview of what Arts Orange County does as well. We're a traditional arts council in terms of programs like an online arts calendar that's countywide and has other resources like jobs and auditions and calls for artists and other opportunities, volunteer opportunities. We do an annual arts awards event where we honor arts leaders, artists, emerging arts leaders. We have our Imagination Celebration, which is a 6-week arts festival of mostly free events for kids and families that just kicked off this last weekend and involves 60 events countywide. Many different organizations have their own independently produced events as part of it under our umbrella. It's in its 34th year. We have our annual Dia del Nino Festival, which took place this last weekend. We began it in Santa Ana. It was in Birch Park for 6 years until it outgrew the park. And thanks to the assistance of the OC Fair and Events Center, they invited us there, and that's where it's taken place the last 2 years. We also maintain and manage a public art inventory of all public art in Orange County. And we have an Emerging Arts Leaders group that meets monthly, the OC Docents League for volunteer docents who receive training. We do fiscal sponsorships and newsletters and more and more and more. We have a veterans project as well. And then, as I mentioned, we do cultural planning, we do public art projects. We manage the 14-acre sculpture park for the city of Newport Beach. This is our 4th year. Again, we facilitate it. We don't pick the art, but we do install and deinstall 10 works per year on loan for 2-year loans. And we assist in other kinds of strategic planning. So we've been very involved in the Otis report for quite a number of years now as a media partner and an advocate of the report. And part of the reason for that was that they always included, it was LA-based, but they always included Orange County and broke out the Orange County statistics, which of course are very useful. So I believe that your art specialist, Tran Lee, has shared with you the 10 top reasons to support the arts that Americans for the Arts has prepared, which references a lot of different research reports that they've prepared. But, you know, I like to joke around and say that I'm that guy in the trench coat on the corner, you know, selling watches. So I open my coat and I've got a Rolex, or I've got an Apple watch, or I've got, you know, a Timex, whatever, you know, you're interested in, we've got it. And in the arts, whatever is your greatest concern about society, issues in the community, there is an important role that the arts plays in addressing that, whether it's the economic vitality of your community, whether it's keeping kids in schools and off the streets, whether it's kids getting good grades in schools. The arts motivate them. They tend to be the better students, the ones who are engaged in the arts. So we have so many great arguments, you know, and we're not just this elitist art for art's sake thing, you know, this cream puff in a bakery or something. I love cream puffs, but, you know, which, you know, I think there is that perception that some people have, you know, when they're faced with so many serious community concerns. Well, we are healers. We are problem solvers. We're innovators. And so the arts really have a great story to tell to everyone in the community. And much of the work that we do also at Arts OC is advocacy. And so the Otis Report and other statistics like the Americans for the Arts research are critical tools in our quiver to approach elected officials and say, this is why you should be investing more dollars, staff time, resources into arts and culture in your community, because it really boosts the vitality of your community in so many ways. So the Otis Report, unfortunately, last year stopped breaking out the Orange County figures because they had gone statewide, and so we're just lumped into the data for LA. But I have some 2-year-old data that does still break out Orange County, and I also have some other pinpoint data that I'm going to share. So the current report, the macro view, is really focused on California and LA. So in California, what they call creative industries. So the creative industries are not just the little nonprofit arts organization in your community, but it's also the quinceañera dress shop. It's the graphic design shop. It's the printer. It's the architect. There's many different creative industries that are thriving within the community and that contribute to the economy and that contribute to jobs. So 15% of the total employment in the state of California are in the creative industries, and in LA, it's 11% of total employment. Now, in LA, obviously, the film and entertainment industry is very big, but so are areas such as the fashion industry. And LA outpaces New York City by 10%. In terms of creative jobs and creative economic impact. One of the other arguments we like to make, particularly with parents, when talking with them about why their kids should have standards-based curriculum in the arts in their schools, and that they should be fighting for that and not allow budget cuts to take them away, is because employment in the creative sector tends to pay more than in other industries. Now, yes, there are higher paying than the creative sector too, but on average, a creative industry job pays higher. The creative industry average in LA, I believe, is over $100,000, whereas the non-creative average is $60,000. So Now, no, not everybody makes at that level, but it's not a dead-end profession. It's not you're going to be a starving artist necessarily. You could be, but there are opportunities out there for artists to make a good living. So parents who are concerned about that, we like to bring that to their attention. And then the two rising areas of employment in the creative sector in the latest Otis report are architecture and fine and performing arts. So they have increased by almost 1/3. I actually think that some of that is more a rebound from the effects of the recession, where a lot of those jobs went away. And so we're seeing a restoration of many of these jobs. Back 2 years ago, the Otis report broke out specific Orange County data, and it's very small type, so I'm going to have to put on my glasses here. So total creative sector jobs in Orange County in 2017 were 93,000, or 7% of all workers in Orange County. Labor income was almost $6 billion, and in terms of the county's gross product, over 4%. But what I also like to bring to the attention of elected officials, because, when they know we're not, anytime you knock on the door of an elected official, they know you're usually looking for money for your cause. And so I like to say that actually what you're doing is you're investing back some of the money you're making from the creative sector. So just so you know, state and local taxes in Orange County in 2017 were almost $1 billion from the creative sector. And so I like to say, we're not asking for $1 billion, but imagine that you could grow that $1 billion in tax revenue by investing a few $1 million more than you are now. It would be worth it. You would want to do that. So that's an important part of what we like to share with them. Then the nonprofit portion of the sector. There are 700 nonprofit arts and culture organizations in Orange County. And their total income is about $500 million. And so those groups are also contributing greatly to the sector. We just, in the plan that we just did for Costa Mesa, we paid an outside contractor, the folks, in fact, who did the Otis report, we paid them to bring in city-specific figures. Now, not everything can be drilled down to that specific detail, because they use labor statistics, and many of those are based on the standard metropolitan statistical areas. So, LA, Long Beach, Orange County are one big area. But they were able to drill down on a few things, and the one that we liked the best was getting that Costa Mesa directly gets, as a city, $1.7 million in tax revenue from its creative sector. So that's one of those things where, and I'm going to show you a graph shortly about how much they're actually spending now on arts and culture, and why that's going to be a critical argument in favor of increasing that in the plan that goes to their council shortly. There's a different source. So Americans for the Arts also has used Dun & Bradstreet, which is a very respected source of business data. And they're now transitioning away from that. So again, this is 2-year-old data, but they were able to drill down not within the city limits, but within assembly districts. So Assemblyman Tom Daly serves District 69, which encompasses much of Santa Ana. It also has some of Anaheim and Garden Grove. But in the Dun & Bradstreet data alone, that shows that in this district, there are 750 arts-related businesses employing 6,000 people. So the other thing, though, when you're hearing those larger statistics of Orange County, it may not seem quite as impressive. But the other thing about the Americans for the Arts and Dun & Bradstreet data is that's just the tip of the iceberg, because most people who are self-employed, and there are a lot of them in the arts, are not registered with Dun & Bradstreet. These are only, larger businesses. So that means that there's a lot more people working in the arts than even the Dun & Bradstreet data reflects. So I do have a couple of handouts, which I'll share here. Make sure I give you enough of them here. So one is on city spending on arts and culture. Not all the cities in Orange County are represented, but a good proportion of them. And you'll see, and some of this data may be 1 or 2 years old. We collect it where we can from arts specialists like Tran. Not every city has a staffer. We go onto websites and try to mine the data out of city budgets, which don't always break out the specific arts information. So, there is a degree of wiggle room on these numbers. But as I was mentioning, you can see there that among the lowest spending cities in Orange County is Costa Mesa, which has had as its motto since 1984, City of the Arts. Now, of course, they've been riding on the Segerstrom Center for the Arts, the wonderful campus of arts venues, and the wonderful, outstanding, world-class arts performances and resident companies there.
What year is this data?
So this data is 2017 to 2019, depending on the city. So it's not absolutely apples to apples, but it gives you kind of a thumbnail of where you stand. So the 60 largest cities in the United States are in the $8.76 range, and that's about a year old, and that is provided by a national association that collects that data. And Santa Ana's on that list, and Anaheim is on that list in Orange County, but those are the only cities in Orange County who made that list. And of course, you look at something like Laguna Beach with $65 per capita. It's an unusual situation. It's a longtime arts colony. Arts performances and the art festivals are their lifeblood economically. 20 years ago, when I was in that community, we worked with the City Council and with the Visitors Bureau to develop a business improvement district, which was an add-on hotel assessment for guests. And that generates a good portion of this. It generates about $1.5 to $2 million a year for the arts specifically. And they have a formula where the large institutions that are year-round professional, so not the art festivals during the summer, but the Playhouse, the museum, the college, each get 20%. The Arts Commission gets 20% for its own programs and gets another 20% for redistribution and small grants. They have about 24 small arts organizations and programs in the community. So the reason why you have to be a year-round organization to benefit is because the hotels are booked solidly during the summer, and what they want to do is generate off-season revenues and bookings. So that's something that the Playhouse, the college, and the art museum are able to deliver to them. So it is a partnership, but it's been in place for 20 years. There's never been a real threat to remove it. It was not easy to get it off the ground, but once it was established, it took hold. So I do have also, I want to share with you, and this is less an economic impact thing, although I think it is something that contributes to economic impact in the community. And that's a snapshot of public art in cities in Orange County. So Santa Ana has, had a relatively strong history of public art being installed, often by private property owners. Some city mandated through developer fees, but it is not at the top. And you look at this chart and you say, "Oh my God, Brea? what the heck is Brea doing at the top there with 200 works of public art? Well, a very visionary council and mayor back in the 70s said, we're this small bedroom community. We want to contribute to having a beautiful place to live, the quality of life here, and this is a great way to do it. So they've had in place for well over 35 years. It's one of the oldest and strongest public art programs. And so any new development that takes place, whether it's the city building new entities or whether it's private property owners developing there, they're required to put money into an in lieu fund for public art, or they are required to actually place and commission a work of public art for their property. Laguna Beach, understandably has a fairly strong public art component. Interestingly, Costa Mesa, has a lot of public art that was installed by the Segerstrom family when they built South Coast Plaza and the Segerstrom Center for the Arts, but there hasn't been a lot more permanent public art coming in, and they've had a very active, for several years now, very active utility box art program. So that blue is the temporary art that, it'll be there for a couple of years until it starts to wear out, and then they'll replace it with another. So they're contemplating the possibility of, within the plan that we've developed, of boosting their permanent public art program significantly. San Clemente also does a utility box program, and Newport Beach has very little permanent public art, but the blue is the Civic Center Sculpture Park, which is certainly a very high-profile program. So we do maintain that list. I've shared it in the past with TRAM, and as we get new, we're in communication, so when she tells us there's new public art we need to add to the list, or we learn of it, we update the list, and then those items on the public art inventory are actually on our sparkoc.com website as well, with links if there are images, so people can actually go on there and say, okay, is there I'm going for the weekend to Santa Ana. Is there any public art to look at when I'm there? So I think that's really all I have to say by way of presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Oh, I do have one more thing, actually, I realized. So I talked about advocacy. So Tuesday is Arts, Culture, and Creativity Day in Sacramento at the Capitol, and we have a rally with about 200 people attending, and we have Speaker Anthony Rendon, who I was able to get to speak at the event, as well as Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk-Silva from Fullerton is going to speak. I believe that Assemblyman Daley is going to come down to the rally and speak. And a new Assemblywoman, Kati Petri-Norris, who I met with yesterday, she is planning to drop in and say a few words. So that's our effort on the state funding level. And just so you know, public funding in California was in the doldrums for about 12 years. After about 2002, and it had nothing to do with the state budget at the time, it was a political issue between the head of the agency, the California Arts Council, and the president pro tem of the Senate at the time, who got angered over something and decided he wanted to eliminate the agency. The agency, by the way, was established by Governor Brown back in 1974 during his first set of terms. And so they wanted, the president pro tem wanted to eliminate the agency entirely, and level heads prevailed because there was $1 million block grant from the National Endowment for the Arts that goes to every state, and it has to be matched by the state. So he said, okay, well, we'll give $1 million and match it, and that's it. And that's where it was for 12 years. The license plate, the arts license plate program had started maybe a year or two earlier, so they started promoting that more actively, and that helped bring in a couple million. But it had gone from its peak of $32 million a year to $1 million. And so it was sitting there for a long time. I became involved with the California Arts Advocates and Californians for the Arts, which are two sister organizations, statewide, advocating, and public funding for the arts was a major aim of ours. And we weren't getting anywhere, and it was thanks to a couple of things, a couple of people here really in Orange County that we are now on the road to recovery. And it's an amazing story. First, we needed to find a lobbyist, and we couldn't find any lobbyist who would accept us as a client, because the arts they thought were losers, and that we didn't have very much money to pay them. Well, I was talking with the folks at Boeing, and Boeing is one of the biggest employers here in Orange County, and they have been a big supporter of the arts and of ours. And their philanthropic people are in the same department as their government affairs. So I had met some of them, and I said, do you have anybody to suggest who we might talk to up in Sacramento as a lobbyist? They said, yes, our lobbyist, and they will accept you as a client, no matter what you have to pay, and we'll make the introduction. And the rest was history, because they're a top-notch lobbyist up there, and they have a lot of cities as clients as well as Boeing, and often they're going in to see elected officials who don't want to see them. But now that they're associated with the arts, oh, please come into my office. So it's a win-win. And then on the funding level, there's a gentleman, I met the chair of the California Arts Council, whose name was Melissa Shriver. And yes, you may recognize that name. She was the sister-in-law of Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And her husband, Bobby Shriver, was on the city council in Santa Monica. So we welcomed her to reception in Orange County. And she said, did you know I grew up here in Orange County? What? In Huntington Beach and Newport Beach, and no. So I said, we haven't had anybody on the board of the California Arts Council in 10 years. Wow. The last one was Hugh Hewitt, who some of you may have heard of. And before that, 10 years earlier, there had been a gentleman by the name of Harvey Stern, who was the developer of the Mission Viejo company, and he was on my board at Laguna Playhouse, too. So I said, we really need some representation up there. And Melissa said, well, if you get me somebody good, I'll get Arnold to appoint that person. So I put on my thinking cap, and I hit upon the right person, and his name was Wiley Aitken, and you may have heard of him. He's a prominent trial attorney, and his office is here in Santa Ana, and he was a longtime donor to South Coast Repertory and president of their board. He was a donor and theater lover at Laguna Playhouse. So I talked to him, and I said, is this... Oh, by the way, he had been chairman of the Democratic Party in Orange County back in the years when he was the only Democrat in Orange County. And so he was well connected, and he agreed to do it and was on there for 5 years, 2 years as chair. And he gets up there and he basically says, and he knew the Governor Brown, personally after Schwarzenegger left. And the governor was so tight-fisted fiscally, he did not really want to advance funding for the Arts Council. He basically said, well, if the legislature moves it forward, I'll sign it, but I'm not going to introduce it. So Wiley happened to know the Speaker of the Assembly at that time, John Perez, and spoke with him. And Perez says, okay, I'll give you $2 million more on a one-time basis, and you show me what the Arts Council can do with that money, and then we'll talk again at budget time next year. And since that time, it has grown every year. We are back to $28 million. We still have a ways to go. Governor Newsom has proposed making last year's $9 million one-time increase permanent and adding $1 million to it. But actually, Senator Tom Umberg, who's from this district as well, he's on the Senate Budget Subcommittee, and he would like to see it increased even further, and there's others in the legislature. So being up there in Sacramento next week, we'll be advocating for that. And that's one of the things that we do. We advocate with the National Endowment for the Arts, go to DC each year, go to Sacramento. And, our objective, it's not for us, it's for that money to come back into our community through grants to you. The city can apply for California Arts Council funding and National Endowment for the Arts funding. And I know it has tried for NEA funding, the Our Town grant. Very competitive, very hard to get, but I encourage you to keep after that. And our many arts groups in the community. We had, I think, over $150,000 in grant money come back to Orange County last year from the state. So this is an important role that we play as well. Okay, now that was the last thing I had wanted to say. So any questions you have, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Stein from Advocacy. Any questions for Mr. Stein?
I'm not sure. How do you help the city of Santa Ana?
Well, we help your artists and we help your arts organizations, and we are also kind of the nexus of information. Sometimes we do get a state local partner grant from the State Arts Council. Every county has one that is designated by the Board of Supervisors, and so are we. And we're an independent nonprofit and not funded by the county, but by them designating us that way, we can get a state local partner grant, and that enables us to provide certain services. I like to say sometimes like we're the branch office of the State Arts Council here in Orange County, because there's a lot of information they want to share. Research, grant opportunities, calls for artists, that sort of thing, professional development opportunities. Then it works the other way. So, for example, today I got from TRAM the call for panelists for your artists, investing in artists in the communities grant program. So we then send that information out to the field here in Orange County so that we can help you recruit people for that. And then, so of course, all the different events like the Santa Ana Art Walk gets promoted regularly. And then we held a grants workshop for the California Arts Council back in the fall, and we had 150 people come, and I would say probably at least 20% of them were organizations from Santa Ana coming. And then we offered free 1 hour free grant writing consulting, and we had several organizations who took advantage of that. And then we partner with, Media Arts Santa Ana. They're a partner with us on the Dia del Niño program. So there's lots of different ways. Some of it is direct, some of it is more indirect. Yeah.
Well, I understand what you did for Laguna. I grew up in Laguna with the Art Festival and the Sawdust Festival and all the other art forms there. So yes, that's why they're so high.
But they've also been at it longer. And although I'd like to always point out that, our arts awards each year, our legacy awards, are named after Helena Modjeska. And Helena Modjeska was the first world-famous artist to come to Orange County back in the 1880s, and she was a world-renowned actress who toured Europe, and when she settled here, and, her home is out there in Modjeska Canyon, and the canyon is named for her, the peak is named for her, and the house was designed by the famous architect Stanford White. It's owned by the county, and you can visit it. It's not open all the time, but beautiful place. So we named our awards after her. So Santa Ana had an opera house at that time in downtown, and she performed there. Yes.
Thank you.
So there is a good history of arts and culture in Santa Ana that's always been here. And then, it's changed and evolved over the years with the changing demographics and of the population. And, it's as robust as it ever has been. Yeah.
Any more questions for Mr. Stein?
No. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. That's wonderful work.
Thank you. My pleasure. Feel free to get in touch directly or through TRAM if you have questions or ideas, and I encourage you to come to some of the gatherings we have. We have 2 or 3 times a year we have a mixer where you can meet other folks, artists, arts organization leaders from throughout the county. And
do you know which months? are those?
Well, we just had one in March, so I think August is probably our next one. And then we do have professional development cohorts that we gather on a periodic basis. We had one this week for arts therapy organization leaders. The one before that was museum and heritage organization leaders. And we have city arts coordinators. And actually, we haven't done it in a long time, but usually we'd like to have the city arts coordinators, the staff people, be able to meet outside of the presence of their commissioners, so they can be candid sometimes about the challenges that they face. But we have also had commissioners before, and I think it was suggested at that last one that we have some sort of one devoted to commissioners, so you could hear from other commissioners how they do things and learn kind of best practices in the field. So that's something that's on our plate probably for the fall.
What's your favorite thing about being involved with the Arts Orange County, or your organization?
Well, I really like the fact that we can set an important example for the community in many ways. So we haven't accomplished everything that I would like to in that regard, but I'm very proud to say that our own board of directors, 1/3 of our board are people of color, and quite a broad representation of demographics. So we're not 100% mirroring the demographics of our community, but we keep working in that direction. We have small arts organization leaders, major institution CEOs are on our board. The superintendent of schools is on our board. The CEO of the Orange County Fair is on our board. So it's a great mix. And we had our board meeting yesterday, and just to see them all getting to know one another and that kind of cross-pollination of ideas and relationships, that is not only great for our organization and what we want to accomplish directly, but I just then, somebody had, I can't say who it was, but there's a major non-arts institution in our community, a major institution, who said, how can I do what you've done with your board?
Wow.
So anyway, it was really nice to hear that, and like I said, I don't feel we've gotten 100% there yet. It's a never-ending pursuit. You can't just plant your flag and declare victory and move on. No, you have to keep up the effort. So that's what I like about it. And just our Dia del Niño this last weekend, just the tremendous variety of artists and cultures represented. It's very gratifying to see that and to see, and not just, you think Dia del Niño, okay, here's a Latino-themed children's arts festival, but there were easily as many non-Latinos coming to this and participating and engaging and being exposed to other cultures here. And to me, it's very gratifying, as well as paying artists. I mean, we had about 150 artists we paid for over the weekend. So that's some of the grant money that we get is, luckily we were able to devote most of it to paying for the artists. Anyway, I could go on, and I know you have other business, but anyway, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Tram, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys, and anything else we can do, just feel free, and I hope we'll see you around at some of our gatherings.
Thank you, Richard.
Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Bye-bye.
It is now time for public comments, and I think we're going to be skipping this step. Staff members' comments?
Yes, I do. So regarding the HeartLink application, we received 7 applications, but we've had to disqualify 1 because that person was incomplete. So that person's notified that he has been disqualified, and so now we have 6. the panel will convene on April 24th to discuss and deliberate those 6 applications. And then we just released the we released the Investing in the Artist Grant application, and that's due May 31st. And we also just released today the panelist application for the artist grants, the panelists to be on the artist grants, that you received that email, and that's due May 6th. We also will be having 2 free grant writing workshops. One is a complete, grant writing based on our actual application for people who might be still confused how to fill out some of the components. So it would be open to them, and then that's the first half. The second half will be individual reviewing of their portfolio, because sometimes I think they need that objective eye to look, which one should they submit, and that's in many ways mentoring them too. So we thought we'd roll that together. So that's one workshop. The second workshop is a one-on-one grant writing mentorship, kind of like what Rick was talking about. The date, so that one would be once you've written out your narrative, then you'd come to this person, it's Sarah Rafael Garcia through Crear Studios, make an appointment with her, and then she would go through your narrative and give you good feedback, constructive feedback. That one is scheduled to be around May 15th, and then the general grant writing workshop for our application is May 18th. That's it.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, Tran. Now is commission members' comments. Commission members, please note that this is time for brief updates, comments, and suggestions for future agenda items. Commissioner Garcia, comments?
Are we having any kind of event for Cinco de Mayo here in Santa Ana, like a festival type of thing?
I'm sorry, what your question is,
Are we having something big for Cinco de Mayo?
Not that I know of. Not from the city.
Not from the city.
Not organized by the city.
All right, then no comments?
Thank you. Commissioner Oliva?
No comments.
Commissioner Oliver? Any comments? I have no comments. This concludes the comments. This meeting is adjourned. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 16, 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.